Right. Right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's professional learning opportunity. I am Angela Lazar, Digital Project Coordinator from NCEA, and I will be facilitating this webinar today. So just a few housekeeping notes as everyone is joining in now. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A window, and we will monitor the questions and try to answer them within the allotted time period. And at the end of the session, I will share a link, and that will link to the online survey and how to receive a certificate of completion. So for today's webinar, the Tech Playbook, you will learn the do's and don'ts of classroom tech and how to easily integrate tech into classrooms. We will go into best practices for using technology and how to use your devices to create effective and interactive lesson ideas, projects, and more. Our speaker today is Stephanie Horgan. She's a highly accomplished educator with over 17 years of experience in classroom teaching and school administration. Stephanie has been the forefront of educational innovation, introducing one-to-one Chromebooks into her classroom and spearheading technology integration in various subjects. She leads professional development sessions that focus on incorporating technology into cross-curricular units. Stephanie has presentations that have garnered national recognition. And for things about her personal life, she is happily married to her husband, Michael, and she cherishes her role as a mother to 4 boys, Andrew, Jacob, Isaac, and Oliver. So before I turn it over to Stephanie, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O Christ, our teacher, we thank you for the gift of Catholic schools, where the message of your life, death, and resurrection is proclaimed, discipleship is modeled, and worship of you is cultivated, and community is experienced. Increase our zeal for ensuring that all children and families can benefit from an authentic Catholic education, and that Catholic schools grow in their ability to nurture the souls and form the minds of its students for generations to come. We ask this through the intercession of Our Lady, Mother of Catholic Schools. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you for joining us today, Stephanie. Feel free to take it away.
Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to be here today. I am excited to join you. I am joining you from Bel Air, Michigan. I am from South Carolina, but I am traveling today and taking part in a conference here in Michigan for non-public educators. And so I'm very blessed to be able to spend time with them, but to take some time away and talk to all of you about technology in the classroom. There is a lot that we're going to talk about today. And so I want to take a moment and share my screen. All right. What we're going to go through today is a lot of ideas about what and why. Why do we do technology in the classroom? Why do we have technology in the classroom? What are best practices? I'm going to be giving you a lot of ideas. I tend to lead professional development the way that I enjoyed professional development when I was a teacher. And so I give you ideas that you can walk away from and actually implement into your classroom. I remain accessible for all of you. I will give you my email at the end of this presentation so that you can contact me and let me know, how are things going? Do you have questions? Do you have ideas? I don't want you to walk away from this webinar feeling overwhelmed. I want you to walk away feeling inspired. And sometimes when we walk into professional development, we're given so many ideas that we walk away and we actually don't implement any of them because we're so overwhelmed by the ideas that are given. And so I want you to focus on 1 or 2 ideas and implement those 1 or 2 ideas into your classroom. I'm giving you a copy of this presentation. When you receive your certificate of completion, you will also receive a link to this webinar. And all of the hyperlinks are active. And so all of the resources that I'm going to be showing you today are resources that you can actually take and implement and use in your classroom. So please, I hope that you feel inspired by the ideas I'm giving today and walk away with practical things that you can effectively implement into your classroom. So we want to start by identifying the why. Why do we want technology in the classroom? So many times we find that parents, teachers, administrators sometimes say, there's too much technology. Students are inundated. There's too much screen time. I don't want my child on the screen at all times. And I totally get that. And I totally respect that. But I think there is an effective way that you can include technology into your classroom without inundating your students with too much screen time. Technology in the classroom allows students to interact with each other, especially with Google. Those are live interactions and they're living documents. And so when you share them with each other, students can see live updates, which allows them to work with other students across the world. You know, a lot of times it's students in other classrooms or students in other grades, but the potential is endless. Same with communication and collaboration. Now, we see these words with creating and communication and collaborating and critical thinking. Those are what we call the 4 C's of 21st century learning. The students that we see today are digital natives. They are born practically knowing what to do with technology, and sometimes it's not even taught to them. I don't know if you've ever handed an iPad to a 2-year-old, but it's like they instinctively know what to do. Oftentimes, I think we as adults are afraid to what I'll call press the button. Children are not afraid to press the button. We are afraid we're going to mess it up, that we're going to not be able to undo. And I think that probably comes from years of, you know, losing pages and pages of term papers we've written or presentations we've created and we forgot to save before we closed, or the power went out. And students nowadays don't have that because Google live updates every 6 seconds. And so it saves automatically. And so students today are not afraid to press the button. They're not afraid to make a mistake. They know that they can undo it. And so it allows them to collaborate and create with each other and take those risks that maybe sometimes we are a little challenged to take ourselves. So tech in the classroom allows for multiple different things, but a couple that I want to focus on is it allows students to take responsibility and accountability for their assignments. I thought it was funny because when I first started creating ideas for what does tech in the classroom allow for, I put accountability for assignments. And I thought when I first started teaching, accountability for assignments would look like students would all have their assignments in their drive and they would always be able to find it. For those of you that are actually in the classroom, you know that is not the case. Unless you have highly organized students, they usually can't find, they know it's in the drive somewhere, but chances are they didn't put a title on it and they certainly don't have their name on it. So I think the accountability for assignments has kind of shifted for me at least, but knowing that I can help students with that organization and taking the accountability for their assignments, meaning that it's still the traditional things. They still have to put a title. They still have to put their name and date. They're still responsible for those things that they have to do with handwritten paper. It just looks different digitally, but they're still responsible for all of their work. Tech in the classroom easily allows for differentiation and tiering of assignments. Sometimes that can look like maybe early finishers complete an assignment on an iPad or a Chromebook. Maybe it looks like some remediation help. Maybe it looks like one partner taking notes while another partner is giving a presentation. It can look in a lot of different ways, but it allows the teacher to differentiate and tier those assignments to meet students where they are. So often in the past, we've heard that teachers would often teach to the middle and hope that the students who are falling kind of above that curve are challenged in some way, and students that fall below that curve can catch on along the way. And that is no longer the case. We can meet all students where they are and help all of them to be successful. And again, collaboration on various assignments, but also student-teacher communication. You know, children today are used to pretty immediate feedback. And so they tend to forget. I know that when I was a student and I turned in a paper, I did not forget. I anxiously awaited for that paper to get graded and returned to me. But it allows these live feedback between teachers and students, especially in Google Classroom. It provides for that immediate feedback and teacher-student communication. So I want to start by talking about various ways that we can include technology in the classroom. And we're going to be looking at a couple of different things today. We're going to look at STREAM, we're going to look at gamification, we're going to look at a couple of different methods, because one way doesn't work for everybody. So I want to show you a couple of different ways so that you can figure out what works for you. STREAM is a method of bringing the subjects together to create a cross-curricular experience. So in this situation, STREAM, it's standing for science, technology. The R can stand for a lot of different things. It can stand for reading, it can stand for robotics, but because we are Catholic educators, I'm going to have that R stand for religion, engineering, arts, and math. And so I want to talk about how we can take children's literature, something as simple as a picture book, and how we can bring it across the curriculum and open the experience of that literature to all the different subjects. And we talk about STREAM often about being cross-curricular. STREAM fits in extremely well with technology. It just kind of, technology is the T in STREAM. But technology can look different in a lot of different methods. But STREAM is project-based and learner-focused, which is exactly what 21st century students need. It also prepares them for their careers post-high school, post-college, if that's the path they should choose. Because the jobs that we're looking at today, so many of them are collaborative and project-based. And so teaching students to work together in groups to accomplish a shared goal is preparing them for what they're going to encounter when they get to the quote-unquote real world. Technology and STREAM also allows for alternative assessments. There's a lot of different ways that you can assess student learning without it necessarily being a multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, short answer test. So you can look at ways that you can assess learning in different methods. There is lots of opportunities for multiple grades to work together. But I want to give you some ideas. And this I took from the curriculum, directly from, actually I used the Diocese of Arlington and the Diocese of Raleigh curriculum and just compared them and found some commonalities. In science, you can incorporate STREAM with living systems, chemistry, matter, weather, biology, solar systems, ecosystems. There's a lot of options. Technology, you can do research, you can use resources, or you can provide student creation with it. Religion is our mission. It's what we do as Catholic educators. So it's integrated into all subject areas. Religion cannot stand alone as its own subject. It has to be integrated into everything, because the students have to know that our Catholicity is what makes us unique. And it also allows us to incorporate and teach about Catholic social teaching principles in everything that we do. Engineering is designing, building, testing, redesigning, rebuilding, retesting. And so I feel like with engineering, so often I get to teach the students that grit mindset, that they have to stick with something, figure out the problem, and how they're going to solve it. And that is really challenging for students today, in today's world. They like to get it right the first time and be done with it and move on. But that's not the case with engineering. And they have to figure out what the problem is, how to solve it, test their theory, and then retest it, redesign it, rebuild it. And so it teaches that grit mindset. With arts, it's not just drawing a picture. Arts is so much more. It's visual representation, it's graphics, it's music, it's plays and skits, theater. Arts sometimes you think, oh, I'm just going to have them draw a picture about what they heard. That's one way to do it, yeah. But there's lots of other ways too. So I'm going to share some fun ideas with you. And then finally with math, there's a lot with math, but measurement, probability, logical reasoning, number sense, shapes and symmetry is always fun to talk about and encounter. But what I love about the curriculum in 2023, and this is true of most curriculums I come across, they're what we call spiral curriculums. And so students in first grade are going to learn a concept, and then they're going to hear it again in second, again in third, again in fourth, again in fifth. And each time they get a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. And they look at those concepts from a different angle, and they learn about it in a different way. And so I love that idea of a spiral curriculum, because they're hearing the same things again and again and again. And we as teachers, of course, are really good at repeating things again and again and again and again. And so I want to give you an example. When I was teaching, my teaching partner and I decided that we were going to be doing science, and we were going to teach about biomes. And we happened to be talking and to a couple of other teachers, and we were talking about how we're going to have them design a slideshow presentation that they're going to show to parents about biomes. And the first grade teacher said, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm teaching about animals." And so we had the idea to pair a first grade student learning about animals with a fifth grade student who was learning about a biome. So we paired the student with the animal to the fifth grade student that had the biome that animal lived in. And together, the fifth grade students were able to teach the younger students how to work Google Slides, how to import pictures, how to do research. And in turn, the first grade students taught the fifth grade students to slow down because things didn't come quickly. They had to take time to teach these concepts. And then at the end, we had kind of like a living museum where the parents came into the cafeteria and moved throughout the cafeteria. And they saw the student presentations. In the first part was the first grade presentation on the animal, and then the second part of that presentation was the fifth grade presentation on the biome that animal lived in. And it was highly memorable. It was really fun. And because it's collaborative, the students were able to share the presentation, and first grade could work on it when they had time, and fifth grade could work on it when they had time. So we didn't always have to be together to complete that part of the project either. That's just one example. So today I want to talk about ideas for incorporating stream into a reading curriculum. Now, you'll notice that I tried to choose books that were high interest. They could kind of go across everything, and they also could be taught to kindergarten on a very basic level, or they could go in depth with even the middle schoolers. And so this book is called Those Shoes, and it's by Mary Beth Bolts. And the summary of it is that everyone in Jeremy's school is getting a cool new pair of high tops. Jeremy lives with his grandma, and there's not money for expensive new shoes. And so he has to learn about the difference between wants and needs. And it ends with him learning about the joy of giving rather than receiving. And so I start with a question when I do this. I start with shoes are necessary for people across the globe. How can we provide shoes to those in need? So I have this template, and again, I'll fast forward a couple, but I show you, I'm giving you this template so that you can make a copy of it and use this template if it works for you. So with this template, I want to look at how I incorporated science, technology, religion, engineering, art, and math. So in science, we talk about durability. What are the environmental impacts of materials on shoes, and shoes in different areas? If you are in a desert climate, sand gets hot. So you're going to need something that's a little more heat resistant. Whereas if you're in a high flood area, you're probably going to want something that's water resistant. And so we talk about the durability in various conditions and talk about the impact of the environment on those materials. In technology, we talk about the research. We learn about the communities in need, communities around us, as well as communities around the globe. We also research about how shoes were made. What's the process? What materials actually go into making shoes? And why are those shoes priced so high? I have two teenage sons. I have two 9-year-old sons as well, but I have two teenage sons, and they love a name brand. And so, we have to often have that conversation about, can that be money be spent in a more positive way rather than on just something that has a name on it because you think it's cool. And so it's always a fun conversation to have with students because they have different reasonings too. And some of them are very passionate about why they want certain shoes. And so it's very interesting to learn about. With religion, you can host a local shoe drive, and you can donate those shoes to the homeless shelter, to a children's home. Sometimes food pantries will give away if they have shoes or clothing. They'll also, they can give those to parents who are coming to pick up supplies for food. And then also, if you've never heard of an organization called Soul Hope, it is a service project organization where a school or a group collects used jeans, slightly used jeans, and they're given a template, and you cut out the shape of a shoe. You send it back to the company, and they take all the templates that have been cut out of the various size templates that have been cut out of the used jeans, and they sew together shoes for those who are in need. It's a wonderful organization. It does require money up front for the service project to be brought to your school, but all of that goes back into producing more and more shoes for those around the globe that need it. Wonderful. They have a website and everything. Wonderful organization. Engineering, you can actually build a model of those shoes. You can have in art, you can design the shoes. Engineering, you can have them build a model of those shoes, and then you can have somebody wear them for a day. One of my students, their group thought it would be really fun to use Legos to design and wear shoes. And I said, that's great. But as a mom of 4 boys, I am constantly stepping on Legos, and it's my worst nightmare. I would not want to spend an entire day walking around on Legos. But they did it, and they actually had a student who made it about 3 or 4 minutes in those Lego shoes, and that was that was as far as he made it. But really innovative approach. And then finally, in math, you can calculate the cost of materials needed to create that design. You can include figures for multiple sizes, multiple different materials, and add it up. So that's one example of how you can take something like a book and look at it from all different directions, and incorporate it. And you can see how you can make it as basic or simple for the younger students, or as challenging as you want for the older students. One of my favorite books is by Suzanne Collins, and it's called When Charlie McButton Lost Power. This book speaks directly to 21st century kids. So there is a thunderstorm and the power went out at Charlie's house. And so what's he going to do without his TV and his video games, and his phone? And so it causes us to step back and take a look at how heavily we rely on electricity in our daily lives, and what happens when the power goes out. There are some children who live in areas where the power often goes out, and there are some children who live in areas where the power almost never goes out. And so talking about that is really a unique conversation. And so with science, you can research weather or alternative power sources. This is when we started looking at solar panels. And you can experiment with paper circuits and electricity. You can connect a battery and paper clips and wire to turn on a light bulb. You can also do an unplugged coding activity. And an unplugged coding activity is literally learning about coding while not on a device. And so students would have to follow directions and create a pattern to help Charlie get the lights back on. If you research unplugged coding activities, there's so many online that you could use. And then in religion, we talk about ways that we can conserve electricity, and what effect does the waste of electricity or the waste of natural resources have on our world. And I think that goes hand in hand with the Catholic social teaching of caring for creation. God has given us the responsibility to use these resources responsibly, and how can we do that? In engineering, you can build a light box or a lantern using what was learned about circuits. You can also, in art, use glow-in-the-dark ink to create a piece of art. They make glow-in-the-dark puffy paint, if you're not aware. It's awesome. I wouldn't recommend giving it to students younger than 2nd grade. Tried it with first graders, and it was a little challenging with glow-in-the-dark puffy paint. But if you've got a lot of help and you've got the patience, more power to you. I tried to do it with just me and my teaching partner when in a first grade classroom. We needed a little more help than I think we anticipated, but we got through it. And then also in math, you can complete a cost analysis for various types of alternative power sources. And also look at light reflection and distribution if you decide to design a lantern. And then I'm not going to necessarily go completely through this one, but Goldilocks and the Three Bears by Corey Rosen Schwartz is just another take on Goldilocks and the Three Bears, except they're looking for a new member to play a unique instrument in their band. And so they hold auditions. And so you can pose the question to the students about what you can make, what can you use to make an instrument? What resources can you look at? Can you build it. You can also take a virtual field trip. I will tell you that the Dallas Symphony Orchestra has a kids website where you can take a virtual field trip, and you can also listen to the various sounds that different instruments make. And so students can kind of get an idea. And I think we used to see this a little bit when we were younger, with making either a drum or using a Kleenex box and rubber bands and a paper towel tube to make a guitar. But you can update it a little bit more. You can also, if you have iPads, bring in GarageBand and have them write a song. And so there's a lot of different opportunities to bring in music as well. Stream allows for not only the integration of cross-curricular units, but it also allows for cross-curricular teaching. So this is a great opportunity to bring your specials teachers in, bring the music teacher in, bring the PE teacher in, bring the art teacher in, and work with them. They know their curriculum and you know your curriculum. How can you work together to accomplish a goal where the students are using the same base resource? In this example, it's a children's textbook, or I'm sorry, a children's reading book, but it can be anything, you know, and maybe you start with a piece of art and you or an artist, and you work backwards from that place. I also would encourage you to bring the students in on it. So how can we incorporate, you know, what we're learning in religion to music? Well, they can create a song based on the religion unit. They can make a song based on the season that we're in. You know, if it's an Advent season, it's a song of joyful preparation. If it's a Lenten song, it's going to be more somber and preparing. And you know, you can make a song about the Triduum. You know, those three most sacred days in the Catholic calendar. And so I will tell you that when you open it up in the arts department, you will see the most unique children coming out of the woodworks with songs or art pieces or skits, because those artistic brain children shine in that particular area, but they might not shine in the science and the technology. So creating this allows for all the students to shine in the different areas where they're strong. Again, here is the template that I'll be giving you. You can put the question or the problem, the description or the summary, the title and the author, and then you can fill in these areas. I'm always available if you need help thinking of some of these different activities. And I will tell you that when you incorporate STREAM, you do not have to incorporate all 6 areas. You can incorporate 2 or 3. You might not have time to do a huge research project in science and have them building, but you can do a math lesson incorporated with religion because you have to teach those anyway. So don't feel that even though you are venturing into STREAM, that you have to do an area for every section of STREAM. It's okay to start small and work your way up. That's how you're going to be more and more successful. I want you to keep in mind that this is years and years and years of learning and increasing my knowledge and trying different things that worked and didn't work. And so do I necessarily do a cost analysis of, you know, a book that I read? No, of course not. You know, the day that the crayons quit, somebody had an idea with talking about the day that the crayons quit and how much money it would cost the mom to keep buying boxes of crayons for the child in the book. I did not do that with my 3rd graders. It was not going to be effective to them to learn about the cost analysis of buying boxes of crayons. I couldn't necessarily figure out a way to incorporate math into that other than crayons draw different shapes. So I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to do a math lesson tied to this. That's okay. That's okay. But I want you to look at this as an opportunity to start thinking in different ways, to start looking at a problem from multiple dimensions. So we talked a little bit about unplugged coding, and unplugged coding relies on physical activities, games, and manipulatives to help students understand the fundamentals of coding and what those concepts are. Coding is pattern. It's pattern recognition. If you've ever heard of binary, it's zeros and ones that repeat in different patterns. These are great examples to use, or great activities to use in early childhood. So if you're looking at preschool, kindergarten, first grade, unplugged coding activities is where it's at. That's where a lot of parents have a lot of concerns about screen time with students. This is perfect because you're teaching them coding concepts, but you're not actually having them on the computer completing activities. So I'm going to back up here a little bit, and I want to show you a couple of hyperlinks that I have in here. Again, when you get this, you will be able to click on these links. It will force a copy that will go directly to your drive, and it will be your copy that you can keep, manipulate, use however you want. And so I want to start with the scavenger hunt. This is basic. It's a scavenger hunt for students, and it's all about looking and matching and looking and matching. So taking a nature walk with students and identifying a tree, a sun, a bird, a rock, a flower, and they have to put check marks next to each of those things. That is an unplugged coding activity. You're looking and searching to match items together. I saw this done when I was director of preschool. I saw one of my teachers do this with fire safety. So they walked around the school and they looked for the fire hydrant outside. They looked for the pull button for the fire to call the fire department. They looked for the sprinklers. And it was a checklist. And you've never seen anything cuter than 3- and 4-year-olds walking around with a clipboard that's bigger than them and a giant pencil. It's adorable. But that is an example of an unplugged coding activity. This is another one. This was an activity that I developed in 3rd grade with map making and using cardinal and intermediate directions. And so what I did with the students was we talked about cardinal and intermediate directions, and then I gave them these were cut into squares, and they had little Velcro on the back. And then this was, there were Velcro dots at each one of these places. And the students had to follow the directions and match the directions to the map. And so they had to get, what are the directions from playground to the grocery store? So they had to look, where's the playground? This is the playground, and here's the grocery store. So they had to go up, up, left, left, or they had to go north, north, west, west, or they could go northwest, northwest, north. And so I was teaching them the idea of intermediate and cardinal directions, but we were doing it in an interactive way where students were following directions and being as specific as possible with those directions. And they didn't even know that they were learning coding skills while doing that activity. This is another one. I did this with kindergarten, and it was probably one of the most fun things I ever did. I had a kindergarten teacher that asked me if I would come in and read a book to the kids when I was an assistant principal. And I said, oh, of course, I would love to do that. And I said, can I do an activity with them as well? And she said, yes. So I let my teacher leave and have a little bit of an extra break. And I took the kids and I read them The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And what we did together, I had the same thing. I had arrows and I had these maps that were on the table, and the students had to work with their table mate, and we would read the book, and then we read the book completely, and then we would go back and we would reread the book, and they had to match the caterpillar to the order in which the fruit and vegetables and candies and cookies and items were eaten by the caterpillar in the book. So, and immediately the students wanted to go over. Well, that was not the case. If you remember The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, he eats the juicy green leaf first, and then he eats the apple, and then he eats the pear, and then he goes to the blueberries, and then he goes to the strawberry and the orange, and then he goes to I think it was the ice cream, pickle, cheese, cake or pie, and then he went to sleep and became a beautiful butterfly. So that was an activity that took with kindergarten, it took a solid 45 minutes to do. It was not easy, it was not quick, but it was the students were fully engaged the entire time. And so again, we were learning those skills. This is just a fun activity. I've never actually done this with students, but I just thought it would be a fun activity. Color-coded bracelets. And so again, this is patterns. The students have to assign a color bead to their particular letter, and they have to spell something out. I just use this as an example for a name. They can create a name bracelet by using code. And so they have to match a letter to a color, and then they have to string the beads in that order. That is a skill. It also helps with fine motor skills. Learning how to string beads is another skill that students can work on with helping with that fine motor. And finally, I just gave you a list of various unplugged coding activities. And some of these things you will see and you're like, oh, I used to do that as a kid. Think about back to back. One student is drawing and the other student is looking at a picture and they're describing it. That's a coding activity because the students learn that they have to be very specific, very detailed about how they describe something. And it's the same thing with coding. When you're trying to code, you're trying to get one object to do something. In some cases, it's get the robot to move to the left. Well, you have to be very specific in the directions that you give to the computer to get the robot to do that. And so it teaches the students to be very, very specific in their directions. I think also that's a life skill, to be very specific. And so these are just a fun list of activities that you can have students do in your classroom, and even they can be in stations, they can be in groups, they can be in centers, they can be anywhere you want them to be. But that's the idea of unplugged coding. So it's learning those skills, pattern recognition, directions, repeating, being detailed. All of those things are coding activities that can be done without necessarily staring at a screen. And now I want to switch a little bit. So we've talked about stream and we've talked about coding and unplugged coding. So I want to talk about gamification. Gamification can kind of get a bad rap, I find, because when you talk to some teachers occasionally, you will find when you mention the word gamification, they're like, oh, kids want everything to be a game. I'm not telling you to change your classroom to be solidly games. That's just not realistic. Sometimes you are going to just have to teach students by lecturing to them. That's okay, as long as it's not the only thing that you do. A worksheet every now and then is fine, as long as it's not the only thing that you do. And so this idea of gamification is the incorporation of gaming elements and the mechanics of gaming into those non-game contexts to engage and motivate students. So let's look at a couple of different ideas. So there it goes. The benefits. What are the benefits of gamification? Well, I just mentioned engagement and motivation. The students, games capture their attention. We have a lot of students who are very competitive. And sometimes games in the classroom can actually be taken away because those students can't control their sense of competitiveness. But for the most part, many, I would say, dare to say the majority of students get excited about games, but they're able to control it. And so the motivation, those game mechanics provide a sense of achievement, progress, and they motivate the students to excel. A lot of times it helps that extrinsic motivation and seeing their progress visually, that they're succeeding, really helps with their continued motivation. And it's intrinsically motivating them to want to do better. So it's taking that extrinsic motivation and transforming it into that intrinsic motivation. And then also it's just active learning. It's experiential learning. So it allows students to apply those concepts to a real world scenario. A lot of times we hear about, there we go. A lot of times we hear about teachers that introduce gamification in kind of a more basic way. That's fine. If you're doing a Blooket, if you're doing a quizzes, if you're doing a Kahoot, that's gamification, and you are branching out, and you should be really proud of yourself. It doesn't have to be anything super complicated. I remember that when my teachers would do Jeopardy, that was like the day of all days because we were pumped for Jeopardy. Same thing, and now most places don't play Hangman anymore. But I did see a teacher one time when I mentioned Hangman, they said, "Oh, we do Build It Up Man," and I was like, "Oh, okay, there you go." So you're building up, a stick figure. And so I actually really liked that. I thought that was a really unique take on the game that we used to know as Hangman. And so those were really fun things. I had a teacher who had an idea to do Wheel of Fortune in her classroom for spelling, and it was really cool. And it wound up being really successful, and she carried it on throughout the year. I have a lot of teachers who told me about Sparkle. If you play Sparkle in your classroom, that's gaming. Those are gaming techniques. Those are gaming elements. So you might be doing gamification without realizing that you're doing gamification. So I just wanted to introduce you to another concept of gamification, and that's the idea of quests and challenges. And so I have an activity. This is, again, hyperlinked for you, but I want to show you this. This is discovery boxes. This is what I call, this is something that these are two of my former students who, by the way, are now in college. They were 5th grade at this time. They're now in college, and I did have their parental permission to post their picture here, just FYI. This is when we were learning about the 13 colonies. And our local, I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time, and our local museum, the History Museum in downtown Raleigh, had these discovery boxes. And they didn't call them discovery boxes, they called them something else. I took a riff on that and called them discovery boxes because I didn't want to get in trouble for taking the same name. Even though I was pretty sure nobody would care. I I took a riff on the name of Discovery Box. But they had it available for educators to check out for free. Well, the list was like 32 weeks long. So I knew I was never going to get it in that school year. I would have to reserve it for the next school year. And I thought, you know what? I can do this myself. I can take this concept and make something for my students for this year. And so what I did was I identified the concept I wanted to teach, which was the 13 original colonies. And I divided it up, New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. And I took old Chromebook boxes. I knew this is when like kind of that teacher hoarding comes into handy, because I knew when I saw these boxes, they were like really, really sturdy and really good boxes. And I was like, I don't know what I want to use them for, but they'll come in handy at some point. So I had them like shoved up in the top of a cabinet. Here they are. They became a really great, useful resource for me. So I alternated the colors. One was New England, one was Middle, one was Southern. So the color on the boxes is just butcher paper. And that's how I identified New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. And then I put an outline of the state on the outside. The color was just the color cardstock I had. I literally had like neon cardstock. So that's what I went with. And what I did was I identified, using the textbook as a resource and my own research, important pieces of each of the colonies. And I would put items, anything I could gather. Literally, I made a sign up genius of just a whole list of stuff for parents. And I said, if you have any of this that I can have, send it in. And they came out, they succeeded. They really pushed this to be amazing. And I also got a hold of the assistant principal's colored printer and printed out some colored pictures, which was really fun. But this is, I can't remember which colony this was, but I think it was Massachusetts. But there was sand. And then I gave a little description about what it was. And then this is a cutout of a fish. And again, I gave a little description of what it was. And John Winthrop, and looking at I think this is one of those paintings of the idea of what the first Thanksgiving would have looked like, I believe. And so the students had to read through this information. And then what I did was I gave a QR code in each of those boxes, and they had to scan that QR code, and it led them to a Google form. And they had to answer questions as a group about the things that they found in each of those boxes. And then what they did was, at the time, you had to download QR code reader. You don't necessarily have to download that anymore. You can get to it through the website. And then all the students we would go through 2 stations per day. And so we did one station, because there were 13 colonies. We did one station together. And then they did 2 stations per day. I will tell you that trying to achieve more than that with younger students is, you probably don't want to do more than 2 a day. So it took about a week and a half. And then the students had all of the answers to the Google form, and that became their study guide for the assessment that I was going to give them. And I wanted to show you that it does not just have to be the 13 original colonies. You can do this with sacraments, parts of the Mass, branches of government, parts of speech, weather, PEMDAS or GEMDAS, depending on how you teach it. There's lots of ideas for how you can incorporate discovery boxes into your classroom. But I will tell you, one of the greatest things I ever did was learn to start asking parents for resources, because they really, they want to help. And a lot of them, especially now with so many parents that work, both parents working outside of the house, and it's challenging to get volunteers. They want to help. They want to be a part of their child's education. And a lot of them will do anything you ask. They just can't be present during their workday, and that's okay. But they can supply whatever you need, and people have random stuff in their house. And so these are some other ideas for challenges or quests that you can do in your classroom. And then if you notice down here, I expanded on it down here in the comment section, how you can incorporate this into your classroom. So, literary quests, you can, create a quest based on a literary work of art or a book. They can take on the characters or the challenges that align with the plot in the theme. And so there's escape room challenges, literary quests, there's math Olympiad, language learning adventures, mystery investigations, lots and lots and lots of ideas that you can incorporate into your classroom. Then I want to show you this idea of a task card. And again, I put down here, I expanded a little bit on task cards. So you can feel free when you get this to read through that information. But a task card is basically an extension activity. So if you have, what can you do for those early finishers? I gave you, well, first of all, I gave you how I did this by using large index cards. You can do this on the computer as well. But I did this, and then I sent this home with a student whose parent had a personal laminator, and they laminated it and cut it out for me, so I saved it year to year to year. But basically, you put the task up here, and there are some details here, and then materials that students can use. So my rule in my classroom was always pick whatever task card you want, but whatever you pick, you must finish. And so this was not necessarily for a grade. This was truly an extension activity. And it was, a lot of times I used it like in the side of the teacher textbook, it'll say extension activities. And I would just put those on the cards and have the students do that and think about how could I incorporate technology into that as well. And so I also want to say you don't have to have 30 or 40 different task cards. You can have 5 or 10 of the same task card because multiple students can choose the same task. You also can have them work in groups if you want to have them allow them to work with a partner. So you can put that in the details. May work alone or with one partner. Some of these activities, they are to be done completely alone. But you can incorporate language and grammar activities or math activities into here. The last thing I want to share with you is 30 projects using a green screen. If you've never used a green screen, I'm giving you this resource. This is clickable. You can click it. And what is in here are 32 activities of ways that you can use a green screen in your classroom. So green screens are very affordable nowadays, or if you have one in your school, these are ways that you can use it. And so please read through this. Tips and tricks are included in here, as well as ideas for ways that you can utilize the green screen for projects. And so this is just an example of the 100th day of school. Here are the materials. Here are some backgrounds that you can incorporate, and then also the project description, ways that you can do it. So again, I'm giving you this resource. This is a link to this presentation. You can scan it. Let me do this real quick and check to make sure. Yep, it's open, so you can scan this. We also, again, are going to send you a copy of this presentation. So if you don't want to scan it, that's totally fine. I'm here for your resource as a resource to you. Please take the time and send me messages. I want to help you. I want you to be successful. So I have enjoyed today very, very much and hope that you are walking away with something useful for your classroom.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. You did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to everyone who joined today, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate you joining our webinar today. NCEA continuously strives to improve the quality of our services for our members based on feedback. So we will use the input that you provide us to inform future work and improve our services. And I dropped the link in the chat. So if you want to click on it, it should take about 5 minutes to complete. If you're interested in receiving the certificate of attendance, please include your email and your name at the end of the survey. And the certificate will be sent via automated email. So if you see that you haven't received it yet, please check your spam. You might receive it in a few minutes, so just give it some time. And to learn more about any upcoming webinars, please visit ncea.org/webinars and have a great week. Thank you so much, all of you, and to Stephanie.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Take care.